right, rolling along here on this Tuesday. We're expecting impending news. This tweet came in from Adam Rittenberg of ESPN, who covers college sports so well. Quote, Syracuse has a team meeting set up for later this afternoon. He tweeted this 41 minutes ago. It's already later this afternoon. According to a source, the school is zeroed in. I love all the different euphemisms for this is the guy they're hiring. The school is zeroed in on Georgia defensive assistant Fran Brown to be its next head coach. We are expecting the official announcement probably by 5-ish, maybe 5-ish. Call it 5-ish. With that, we want to get to know Fran Brown a little bit better, especially presumed reason he's being hired is because he's a really good recruiter. So with that, we bring in Brooks Austin. He's the lead editor for Dogs Daily, the major recruiting site about Georgia down there in Athens. Brooks, welcome in. All right, tell us a little bit, especially from the recruiting side of things. What is Syracuse getting here, Brooks and Fran Brown?
Yeah, everybody knows he's obviously been rated and talked about as an elite recruiter. But particularly an elite recruiter in the northeastern region of this country. When he was first hired at the University of Georgia, that was kind of the buzz around him. Of course, going to be a really, really above average and elite defensive backs coach and going to get the job done there, but was really going to be able to patch Georgia into the northeastern region of the country, a place that they weren't known for going in and pulling out 5 stars. Fran Brown's hiring was kind of their initial entering into that region of the country because of his ties to all of the high schools in that area of the country. So not just an elite recruiter, not just a guy that's been able to land 4 stars at schools like Temple and Rutgers, but a guy that's extremely tapped into the region that he's now returning to.
Yeah, obviously he's a New Jersey native. He's from Camden, spent a lot of time at Rutgers and Temple. You know, what kind of success did he have in New Jersey in that area at Georgia? How many legit guys has he brought that way in 2 years?
You know, he helped out even across the lines of scrimmage, helped out, landing and tapping into guys like Nair Daniels up there at Bergen Catholic. So it's not been just, defensive backs either. He's had an ability to kind of develop relationships across all positions and been trusted to kind of go up there and handle the recruiting end of things for a variety of positions. So it's not just the defensive back group, because most of what they do and most of the top end players that they've kind of focused on at those positions have actually come from the southeastern portions of the country. The northeastern divisions of the country, Georgia's gone up there and brought down elite edge rushers and linebackers and lines of scrimmage athletes. And Fran Brown, even throughout his, 18 months, 19 months, he wasn't here long, developed, tremendous amounts of relationships, and it paid dividends with select few players that they needed to land.
Yeah. Now, obviously, Georgia's recruiting in the upper reaches and echelons of the country. They're going after the big of the big down there, which is not necessarily the pool Syracuse normally swims in. But, you see quotes and interviews, and we got some sound to play back later in the show from Fran that, and this is well before he would have been in the mix for this job, him saying things like this, that he's like, yeah, I plan on still, regardless of where I'm at, I plan on still targeting these guys. Obviously it's easier to recruit to Georgia than to other places. How good of a recruiter is this guy when he's not going to have, the UGA on his head?
Like I said, if you land 4 stars at Rutgers and if you're landing 4 stars at Temple, you're out recruiting your base at that point as a position coach. You know what I mean? So that's not even good. You're still having to win over your own staff. You're still having to, talk over for your head coach while you're recruiting these high school football players. As a head coach at a Power 5 football player or at a Power 5 football program, you would imagine he'd be able to recruit above board and above his own weight class. Which is something that I'm not tapped into the Syracuse market, but I would imagine that's a first for a head football coach up there where hey, we bring this guy in, he's going to at least recruit at Syracuse at a higher level than we historically have.
4 and 5 stars are not necessarily the parlance we normally deal with. The list is very, very short of the all-time, certainly 5 stars and even 4 stars. It's not that many going back over time. So I guess that's what we really don't know. We're talking to you, and you know the recruiting side of things. What do you know about this guy? Like, actually, as a football coach, because it would seem he's hired for his recruiting acumen. I'd say it's rare, right? You hire a football coach. I got no idea what his offensive ideas are. I got no real idea what his defensive ideas are. Do you have any idea what he is on the football side of things?
Here's where it gets really, really fun. So I'm kind of known for studying the football aspects of the things here in this beat. Fran Brown's first football game as a defensive, coach at the University of Georgia was against Oregon last year to open the season. And they started doing something that I've never seen them. I haven't seen them do in a long time. They've done it every once in a while, but it was very rare to see them do this, which is they took one corner and they played him to the field the entire time, and they took the other corner and they played him to the boundary the entire time. So you would see them flip-flopping. Mm-hmm. It's something that you don't see Georgia doing a lot. And we don't get a lot of schematical answers from Kirby Smart. He likes to keep things in-house. So if you were to ask him about it, not really going to give it to you. So I had to wait on it. I had to ask people around the building because I was curious, like, what the heck y'all didn't do? Y'all don't do that. Why y'all do that? Well, come to find out, Fran Brown saw something in Oregon that they like to take, vertical shots into the short side of the field, so into the boundary. So what they were doing was they were flipping Keely Ringo, their faster corner, to the boundary every single time because Fran Brown had noticed this. So not only has he identified that Oregon, this tendency that they had, in his first opportunity at a place like Georgia with Kirby Smart, Glenn Schumann, a defense coordinator, Muschamp, Will Muschamp in that defensive room as well. Got all these defensive minds. In his first game, he asked them or suggests to them, hey, let's do something that y'all haven't done in quite a while. And they don't even bat an eye. They're like, all right, let's do that for sure. That sounds great. They end up going on to Skull Drug, Oregon. Let's flash forward this year. Okay, they face Missouri. Missouri's got a really, really elite weapon in the slot by the name of Luther Burden, one of the best wide receivers in college football. Georgia says, okay, hey, Fran, I kind of want to play Kamari in the slot this week to take away Luther Burden. Is that okay, Kirby? Kirby's like, you know what? That's a great idea. Let's do that. So just two examples right there for you over the last 24 months, the last 18 months, where some of the smartest football minds in this sport looked at Fran Brown and they're like, you know what? That's a pretty good idea, Coach. Let's do. You know what? Let's do exactly that.
Okay, we like to hear that. We like to hear that. As Brooks Austin is our guest, the lead editor from Dogs Daily on Fan Nation, and you mentioned he's not been there long, but I presume if you put in 2 years under Kirby Smart, or a guy like Nick Saban, who's obviously it's coming from the same coaching tree, like that's like 20 years in like coach time at other places. What have you noticed? Obviously the Mel Tucker thing ended badly, but he had success. Shane Beamer was under Kirby Smart. Sam Pittman at Arkansas. Dan Lanning, who's got a shot to go to the playoffs with a win on Friday. What have you noticed about guys that have come in and gotten the blessing and the immersion in the Kirby Smart experience of what they've taken away from that?
Almost all of them, apart from Shane Beamer. Shane Beamer still is tied to the roots of how his dad coached, which was very much more laid back, family oriented. It's all about vibes and juice and energy, highs and lows, all emotional type stuff. But all the other ones, everybody else that's come from this tree, the successful ones are hyper focused and very, very obsessed with the organizational structure. They study and observe it all. They're involved in all of it. They have the energy and the juice to take care of all of it. They oversee everything. They're willing to do everything. And on top of all of that, they find a way to be micromanagers while maintaining good, balanced relationships with the people that work around them. So you have to have this ability to be a micromanager, be a focused, hyper-obsessed person with all of the details while also maintaining a humanity about yourself. Also, being able to be easy to work with while being very, very difficult to deal with at times. So all of those things are required to be successful. But here's one thing I'll say about Fran. They knew that this was going to be the deal with this guy very, very early on. They knew he wasn't going to be here very long. I'll tell you a quick fact here. Do you know the name Jimmy Sexton? If you don't, he's one of the biggest agents in the sport, okay? He kind of handles all of college. For one of the three agents that handle all of college football coaches, he had two clients that weren't head football coaches the last calendar years. Those two clients that weren't head football coaches were Jeff Lebby, who just got a head coaching job at Mississippi State and got a fine contract doing so, and the other one was Fran Brown. So, leaving Rutgers, that Jimmy Sexton knew something about this guy. The world of college football inklings and outer workings knew way before anybody else that this guy was going to be a Power 5 football coach at some point. I imagine he'll be very, very successful.
I'd say, Brooks, we've been trying to wonder how, you see all these initial lists, and, Fran was not on any of these lists a week ago when it involved the Syracuse football coaching search. But you invoked the name Jimmy Sexton. I think you've answered my question of how Syracuse got onto him. I think that just connected all the dots because, he's Saban's agent. Like, he's all these guys' agents. Like, he's the agent to all of the big boys in college football. So, it's going to be interesting to watch here, and obviously Georgia's been through this. How has Kirby Smart handled this? Because obviously, assuming Stan's announced here as the head coach for the next half hour or so, as we're presuming, and he's down in Georgia right now, and he's presumably will be coaching in the SEC championship game on Saturday. All right, let's make the leap that Georgia's in the playoff now. Is that a stick around? Does he let him go? Is it half and half? How has Kirby and his moved on coaches handled that recently?
So it's most of them are inward promotions. They just bring somebody up. But it's funny. It's an embarrassment of riches down here. This is going to sound like, and I don't mean to degrade what Fran has done because he's been super. I just explained how vital he's been and how influential he's been on game plans. But he's not even really like the full defensive backs coach. Like Will Muschamp coaches the safeties.
Right.
He's just been labeled the cornerback coach. Really, you know what I mean? So. At most schools, you lose the defensive backs coach, and you're like, "Daggum, we got to handle 5 positions now with this new assistant." Well, at Georgia, it's just like, "Hey, Will, can you take care of the corners too?" And the former, Power 5 football coach and former defensive coordinator at a really, really elite level is like, "Yeah, I think I can handle that." So it's kind of that deal. But as far as replacing Fran, this will be the third time in 3 years because. They replaced Jamal Adai, who left Georgia to go to Miami with Mario Cristobal, and now they'll be replacing Fran Brown this time. And heck, they're 3.5 years removed from replacing Charlton Warren, who went on to take the defensive coordinator job at Indiana. So this is par for the course at the University of Georgia. You have successful seasons. You have coaches get pulled off of your staff.
Yeah, that's what it's called, a good problem to have. That is a good problem to have. All right, last thing for you, Brooks. Just before we came on here, you put out an article about a Georgia edge rusher by the name of Darius Smith entered in the portal, and not a name that I'm familiar with here. But do you think Brown is? You think Brown's going to bring anybody with him? Because we'll take a backup at Georgia. That figures to be a good deal up here.
It's been kind of par for the course for these guys, right? Sam Pittman left a couple of years ago and took Matt Landers, took Latavius Burnett. These are names that Syracuse folks have no idea about. But, you might run across something like this. And here's the thing about Georgia and this staff. They haven't been as cutthroat as some. If they miss on some guys, 4-star, 5-star kids that don't pan out or don't get playing time at Georgia, at a lot of places that recruit at this caliber, they'll just ask the kid to leave. At Georgia, they kind of allow guys to hang around as long as they want. And on the other side of that, from what I've seen and observed, they've been relatively influential and helpful in the exiting process when kids ultimately decide that they want to go. So, yeah, Fran has done everything right by everything that I know at this university. And if you do that, Kirby Smart, if you do right by him, he'll ultimately do right by you. Now, that being said, you're not going to be able to walk around and pillage the village and run through the roster. But, yeah, I would imagine maybe some third, fourth-string corners and defensive backs and guys that Fran's had, close relationships with. Those would be football players that I'd be paying close attention to.
Obviously, we'll check on that. The portal officially would be opening for stuff like that coming up on Monday. So busy times ahead for us all. All right, Brooks, thanks so much for joining us for the Insight today. It's been great to chat.
No doubt. Y'all have a good one. All
right, Brooks Austin. He's the lead editor of Dogs Daily. So a little insight there. That was good stuff. Brooks does the recruiting, but that was good to hear about the game plan aspects involving the presumed soon-to-be new... How long are we going to have to keep doing that? The presumed soon-to-be new Orange football head coach in Fran Brown. I'm still very intrigued, though. Defense is great, but we're sitting here in 2023. Who's the offensive coordinator going to be? Who's it going to be? What's the staff going to look like? This is gonna get really, really interesting here. Because, if a guy like Dan Mullen came in, I wouldn't ask that question. Dan Mullen's the offensive coordinator. If one of these head coaches came in, you'd sort of know what their deal is. Fran Brown, what kind of offense you want to run? Not a clue. Who's your quarterback? Big questions. Big questions to answer here in the coming hours, days, and months. With that, we'll take a break. Phone lines return to being open after this. 315-437-7644 for ESPN 44. We are back next here on this hour, brought to you by William Mattar on QSportsTalk.com and ESPN Radio.
Home